Hello there, football fans. Welcome to the Mercurial Trequartistas Gamecast, your weekly dose of Premier League passion, predictions, and proper football talk. By way of introduction, I'm Pathan, and joining me is my co-host, the man whose grasp of football is so nuanced and so refined that even Mr. Spock raises an eyebrow in admiration. Mark, how are we feeling?
Ooh, an eyebrow is raised because, unlike Arsenal, we're not second in a one-horse race.
We will come on to all that very, very shortly. But what else is on the menu today? So, as always, segment one will be the Premier League talking points segment, and it's quite long this week. There's much stuff to get through. We then have a new mystery section that Mark has told me nothing about, but I shall hand over to him for that. And the second main segment will be the fantasy football section, as always, and we will round things off with our third segment, the obscure facts section, which is gathering momentum with the same intense energy as a Jack Reacher investigation, no less. So let's dive straight into it. Much to get through, but let's begin with two nano points. Firstly, Liam Rosenior in the job at Chelsea, 106 days. He's gone as of last night. Mark, what in the blue hell are Blueco doing?
What's in the blue coat doing? I mean, it looked an unusual appointment straight from the off. Um, he was always going to be up against it. We were skeptical about how successful this was going to be and how it would get met with by senior players who were looking at the guy and possibly thinking, where's the experience? Where's the previous titles? Where are the cups? And there was nothing, was there? It does look like everything just sort of came to a head in the last couple of weeks. There was the blowout with Enzo Fernandez, sort of the semi blowout with Cucurella, and the performance against Brighton. No shots on target. The first shot was in the 41st minute, and out of those six shots, two were wide, four were blocked. They never looked like they were interested. And you look at the Man United game before that, three shots. The game before that, three shots. And it just there was nothing going on. So he ends up giving an incendiary post-match dressing down, and the board have gone off your pop. They're suggesting they're going to have a brief period of reflection. And quite honestly, they need it because how many managers have they had in such a short space of time? I mean, you're looking at Maresca, Pochettino, Potter, and uh, yeah, it's just been nightmarish. Before that, Tuchel, but he wasn't their appointment, was he? So yeah, I think for a lot of Chelsea fans, they're probably looking at the managers that they had and that have gone, and now wondering who's next. Who's interested in taking that on? Because you've got a volatile bunch of players. There's clearly a disciplinary thing going on as well because of just how much Rosinia had going on. I honestly don't know who looks at that job and goes, that's the place for me. They need a big name manager. Where's he going to come from?
Do you think the way Blueco are approaching their running of the football club is flawed? They are doing things very differently to all other elite clubs. Make no mistake about it, Chelsea are a massive club. Always have been for 25 years now. Very, very successful. They've always had, big egos, a large squad each time. But this time around, the way things are managed, signing players onto long-term contracts, this procession of managers, as you say, is like Blueco's approach flawed?
Yes, definitely. I mean, they've spent 1.5 billion on players. And if you're going to spend that kind of money, it's a particular kind of player. They've probably got a big ego. You need a big ego, a big name to manage them, keep them under control, keep them hungry, show them who's boss. And with with all due respect to some of the people that they've picked, I do think Potter's a good manager, but he was never the guy to keep that dressing room under control. And I think the same can be said with Rosinia. Maresca possibly too fiery, but they're in a mess. I honestly don't know what the answer is, who they go for next, because they've effectively gone backwards. And in the last few weeks, they've effectively secured Champions League qualification for everybody else.
Yes.
It's just a
Well,
bizarre sequence.
I think it's worth us focusing on Chelsea in a much longer segment in the very near future, perhaps over the summer, because there's something. I mean, I've said this about Liverpool in recent weeks, but there's something even more fundamentally wrong at Chelsea compared to Liverpool. But we can focus on that. The second nano point, we haven't even got onto the main topics yet, is following a 1-0 defeat to City in midweek, Burnley have been relegated to the Championship. It's been on the cards for a while now. We've both said this for a while. However, City are now level on points with Arsenal. Mark, I think it's truly squeaky bum time for Arteta and co at the Emirates. Do you think they will hold their nerve and do it, or do you think the title could be another one in Pep's collection?
I I never thought Arsenal were taking this. I think I've sort of been saying since November, December, even when it didn't even look like they had a threat. I just didn't see them getting over the line. And now they've got the relentless City behind them. Pep's looking hungry. He's got that twinkle in the eye. He's got the look of a guy that knows this is a foregone conclusion. They'll just keep racking up the wins, and it doesn't matter how pretty it is or how slim or big the margin is. They are just going to keep racking up the points. And some are sort of saying that City have the harder running, but I think that'll go for them. It'll keep them on the toes. They won't take any game lightly, and I think Arsenal have secured second again, unfortunately for Arteta. But it's the way it goes. I just didn't ever see them seeing it through, to be honest. And yeah, the proof's in the recordings. We could check back on the recordings, but I was saying this since December.
Yes, I
I
remember.
never thought it was going to happen.
I remember. Well, let's keep an eye on these stories. But the three main stories in Premier League talking points. Let's start with Leicester, who very up until very recently have been in the Premier League. Now, during our last podcast last week, we touched on the rather shocking situation that Leicester found themselves in. They were docked 6 points for breaching the EFL's profits and sustainability rules. Unfortunately, Leicester have now been relegated from the Championship following a draw with Hull in midweek. So next season, Leicester now face the challenge of having to rebuild in the third tier of English football, despite having Premier League facilities and a Premier League wage bill. Mark, it's some fall from grace for Leicester, who famously won the Prem in 2016 and the FA Cup more recently in 2021. One can only feel for their fans, but all has gone wrong.
It's a mess, isn't it? And it's a big concern for the coming seasons. It's a very expensive training ground that they're running as well. Was it £85 million training ground?
Mm.
They're going to lose players who won't be playing in that league. In theory, you'd think with the tickets that they bring in and the size of the stadium, you'd typically think they'd be bouncing straight back up.
Mm.
But I think the money situation is a lot worse
Mm.
than what everybody's sort of appreciating. And I do feel this could be a very tricky year next year. It was always up against them to stay up. Portsmouth won the key game, and they only just managed to draw, didn't they, the other night? Wasn't enough, and to have the relegation confirmed with a couple of games to go, it's been a savage fortnight for Leicester fans, really, because the point deduction comes in, and the fights, the results that they needed to sort of make a go of staying up just didn't happen, and they are where they are. But yeah, it would be interesting to sort of see where it all started to go wrong, because to go from Premier League winners to League One, that's that's a serious fall from grace there.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, we touched on this recently, but I think the sacking of Claudio Ranieri, it just sort of, I mean, it was about 9 and a bit years ago now, but that really started the whole ball rolling. And Brendan Rodgers, we mentioned this, that you bring him in, he'll be successful for the first 2 to 2.5 seasons, but after that, things always go wrong. But let's wish them well. I mean, they've got many high-earning players who will leave. The club needs to reset. It's as simple as that. They need a leaner squad, and they need a long-term plan for recovery. Let's hope they can put it in place. I just couldn't help but think about Rangers. The story about the old version of Glasgow Rangers came to mind. So the original Rangers went into administration and they were reformed and had to restart in the lower divisions of Scottish football. Not quite the same as Leicester at all, but from there they managed to steadily rise up through the ranks and they've got back to the top level of Scottish football. Let's hope this happens to Leicester in the not too distant future. They are a very good club. Um, People like them. They're like, like some clubs people love to hate, but Leicester's just not one of them. They never will be. So, let's move on to story number two, and this concerns Marie Louise Etter's historic appointment. So she's become the first female head coach of a men's team in one of Europe's top five leagues. So she's taken interim charge of Union Berlin. So Etter was already the first female assistant coach in the Bundesliga, and she helped Union avoid relegation. And she's coached both youth and women's teams at the club. Um, Union fans have warmly welcomed her appointment. They've nicknamed her the Iron Lady, though she's also very disappointingly faced quite a bit of sexist abuse online, which she's come out and said it's just unimportant. Mark, this is great news, but with regards to the Premier League, do you think it's only a matter of time until we have a female head coach in the Premier League? And on that subject, do you think Serena Wiegman, the English ladies national team coach, could and perhaps should be the first?
I think it probably is only a matter of time before it does happen. And when it does, it'll be fraught with, that little bit of extra pressure just because uh, of how boundary pushing the appointment would be. It would be great to sort of see more of the women's game managers in the men's game. And I think there's quite a few that could probably do it. I think Serena Wiegman is definitely one of them. Emma Hayes as well. Bompister as well as Gemma Granger. I think any one of those four could probably do a decent job at any club that they're in.
Mhm.
The only downside is if the big name managers from the women's league are going to the men's league, then the women's league will certainly miss them. It's a tough call. Love to see it happen,
Mm.
but I wouldn't want to see the women's game be weakened because of it. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think football is such a results-oriented business that if someone's good enough, they will get a job. But I think in connection with Etta, Vincent Kompany said that let's hope the usual thing which all coaches face with regards being given time. She's been given a bit of leniency with regards to this, or like something along those lines, because it's tough. And she is a groundbreaker. She is a trailblazer. So let's hope the media don't jump on her back. But she's here until the end of the season, and let's see how the results go. And I think the club has said that though she signed up to coach the women's team, there's every possibility that she might be kept on as the men's coach. But let's see what happens. Shall we move on to story number three? So it's about
Oh
Coventry.
yes.
Yeah. So Coventry are back in the Premier League. So Coventry City, they thrashed Portsmouth 5-1 at home on Tuesday night to clinch the championship title with 2 games to spare. This is a historic achievement. It marks Coventry's first top of the table finish in a completed season since 1967, when they did so in the old Division 2, which for those of you that don't know is the equivalent of the championship in today's football. And more importantly, I think in terms of the finances for the club being in the Premier League and also the happiness of their fans who have waited over 25 years now for Premier League football to come back to their ground, it's amazing. Frank Lampard, their coach, he's called it a perfect evening on Tuesday. What are your thoughts, Mark? So Coventry and Frankie Lampard back in the Premier League.
It's
What
been
do
a
you
really
reckon?
good season for him, hasn't it? And one of the Premier League's founding teams, really. They were there at the start, 92, 93. Memories of Mickey Quinn, Peter Unlove. They
Mm,
they had a really, really good swing of it back in the early days of the Premier League and would be a pain in the neck for a lot of the bigger teams. So yeah, good to see him back. I'm not sure how strong they'll be compared to the teams that came up
yeah.
last season because they really have surpassed expectations. Sunderland have been amazing. Leeds have been incredible. Um, will Coventry be able to match that kind of achievement?
I think he got Derby promoted, but then he switched over to the Chelsea job. I think now he's a much more experienced coach, I Frank. So let's see what happens. But
Well, that's the other thing, isn't it? If Chelsea come knocking a third time, does he
yeah,
go?
but I think he knows it would maybe be 6 or 7 months there. But at Coventry, he's got a chance to win something special. So let's hope he stays this time. Let's hope he doesn't do what he did with Derby a few seasons back and jump ship. I noticed that, I think it was 2 seasons ago, Kieran McKenna, he brought up Ipswich. He was linked heavily with several jobs. I think it was Chelsea and Man United at the time, but he stayed loyal to Ipswich, and he's still there at the moment. But I think he's doing well. I mean, were he to come back into the Premier League at some point in the next few seasons, I think he would do very well. Let's hope the same happens to Frank. Let's do. Can I hand over to you for the mystery segment that you've been talking about? I've been wondering about this for days because you've kept stum about it. So,
Oh, yep, completely in the dark on this one. So this is, I think the best way to describe it is a mystery memorabilia section.
mhm.
So this is the first one. The first bit of memorabilia is going to be an old football annual. Now, I'm not sure how well this will show up on the screen. So, yeah.
Okay.
But we'll see if it does show. There we go. This one is going to be the Shoot Annual 1989. Now, there's a particular section that we're going to be looking at, and it's the 20 things you didn't know about Mark Lawrenson. There are 20 facts here, so Tate gets to pick a number between 1 and 20, and we will look at the fact about Mark Lawrenson and see if it's true that it was one of the 20 things Tate didn't know about Mark Lawrenson.
Let's go for fact number 19.
Fact number 19. Okay, then. Uh, Matt Lawrenson's Achilles injury kept him out for 6 months. But after a spell at a rehabilitation centre in Lilleshall, he felt as good as new and hoped to carry on playing till he was 35. Now, the question is, did you know that about Matt Lawrenson?
I knew about the Achilles injury
Okay.
later in his career, but I didn't know that he aspired to play until he was 35.
Oh, okay. Then. So maybe that's a half. That's yeah,
Half,
half
yes. Yes.
half a fact. You did, yeah. Okay, we'll go with that. Okay, then second one, a number between 1 and 20, but not
Mhm.
19.
Okay. Let's go for number 7, please.
Okay, number 7. Matt Lawrenson received a rollicking from Kenny Dalglish for missing the Scots' first training session as a manager of Liverpool. He was still recovering from a shoulder operation, but recalls, I was left in no doubt that Kenny considered that I was in the wrong for not turning up. So, did you know?
I did not. I did not know
Oh,
that.
okay
So,
then. So it's already living up to the claim then. Okay, then. Last one. Any number between 1 and 20.
Let's go for number one, please.
Number one. Oh, okay, then. At the age of 14, when Matt Lawrenson was playing for Preston Schoolboys, he turned down the chance to join West Ham because he didn't want to move all the way down to London. He signed professional for Preston North End when he was 17 at the time that Bobby Charlton was manager.
I'm going to say half here. So I was aware, well, about the West Ham connection and signing for Preston, but not at the same time as Bobby Charlton. So what do I get? A third or like
I
two
think
thirds?
so. Are we going with a half on that one as well? If we're going for a half, then I think that puts you at 2 out of 3. So at the moment, shoot annual 1989's claim that 20 things you didn't know about Matt Lawrenson. I think you're doing pretty good on this one.
I think what happened was a few years ago, he left the BBC as a pundit, and I read a bit. I mean, it was a very very nice article that was written about him, and they touched on his career as a player, his time as a pundit. So perhaps a few of the facts that you've sort of read out, those bits and pieces, I must have picked them up in the article. It's fairly recently that he left the
Yeah.
BBC, so it was probably to do with that. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean it is weird sort of looking at sort of football memorabilia
yeah,
with an age.
with an age.
There's an interesting article in there called Penalty Plonkers, which is a little on the harsh side, but it actually has like 5 of the worst penalty misses for that season, and it doesn't pull any punches. So maybe
As
that's
they
one for a
shouldn't.
future memorabilia look
Well,
at.
if it's good with you, we have a World Cup summer coming up, but we do have weeks where we have to sort of use some interesting content. So this would be really good. More of the Shoot
Oh yeah,
89 manual, plus other manuals as sorry,
I'm
did
sure.
I?
Yeah, there's plenty of others out there too.
Thank you, Mark. That's excellent. Very, very enjoyable. Very enjoyable indeed. So we now move on to segment two. So fantasy football. Shall I run through the fixtures and then we can have a little chit chat about them just to sort of make
Oh
sure
yeah.
that we get everything right. So yeah. So there's not that many fixtures this week. There's only seven because it's the FA Cup semi-final weekend. So let's start with Sunderland v Forest. It's very rare that you come across a fixture where you can't actually think of that many players that you would put forward as someone who should be picked. But both teams are in pretty woeful form. But if I did have to pick someone, I'd probably go for Morgan Gibbs White. He's been in reasonable form for Forest. After that, if we move on to Fulham versus Villa, Villa's attackers are in sparkling form. They put four past Sunderland just a few days ago, who for the best part of this season have been pretty good defensively. Fulham's midfielders, I've said this so many times, it's just a especially at the team. He always scores highly. After that, we have Liverpool versus Palace. Um, the struggles of Liverpool, I've said so many times in the last few weeks, have been woeful. Really badly against bigger teams. PSG and City have put them to the sword really, really viciously. This team's a bit lower down the table. They haven't, well, they have picked up points. They somehow got past Fulham. It was 2-0 at Anfield a few weeks ago. But I do think that they will be a bit too strong for Palace at the moment. Ekitike is injured. I suspect they will play Mo Salah. It's his last few weeks at Anfield. It's one of his final games in front of the Anfield crowd. I'm pretty sure that he will be well motivated to score goals, so he's the player to go for here. After that, we have West Ham versus Everton. Everton don't travel well, but the defenders are solid in particular on set pieces. West Ham are not in sparkling form, but Jared Bowen is always the one to go for. He's just always got something there that he can inject into the game. Then we have Wolves versus Spurs. Now, in simple terms, if Spurs want to save this season and actually stay in the Premier League, they need to pull their finger out. They need a win which will give them confidence, and this is the ideal opportunity. Wolves have been gone for a long time, and they need to get their act together, pick up 3 points comfortably and well against Wolves. So for that reason, I'm going to go for the Spurs attackers. The next fixture is the plum tie of the week. It's Arsenal versus Newcastle. And exactly what I said about Spurs applies to Arsenal at the top of the table. Arsenal need to pull their finger out if they want to win the Premier League. City are breathing down their necks in a big way. City have the experience. They also have the manager who's done it so many times before. if Arsenal are serious about winning the Prem, they need to pick up 3 points against Newcastle, and I think they will do it. Newcastle are not playing well at the moment, and Eddie's team haven't travelled well for quite a while. So I expect Saka and Co to be amongst the goals. Finally, we have Man U versus Brentford. Now, Brentford are much stronger at home. They travel reasonably well, but Old Trafford has turned into a bit of a fortress at the moment. Under Michael Carrick, the players to go for here are the Man U attackers, but if you can, go for Bruno Fernandes, captain him. He's been very valuable as a captain at Old Trafford. So it's the one to go for. Avoid defenders for both teams. I think Man U might concede one, and I think Brentford will concede a few. So in terms of captains, go for Bruno at Man U or Saka at Arsenal. Mark, anything to add further to that, or?
Tottenham, Wolves. If Tottenham cannot beat an already relegated Wolves, then that's it. They'll be absolutely in huge trouble.
Yeah.
Uh, Now, historically, Wolves have managed to get a few good results against Spurs over the years. They've kind of been one of those bogey teams for them.
Mm.
And Spurs in the last game, some of the reactions to conceding the equalising goal, they look haunted. Some of them
Mm.
players look like they had the look of players that know what's coming, but they're not sure that they can stop it.
Yeah.
So this is a big test, and
Mm.
if they can get a win, then they're going to be making the right kind of statement about how much they want to stay in the league, basically.
Mm.
Arsenal, Newcastle. I think Arsenal will probably win it. Newcastle are in all sorts of a trouble with their recent run, and there's been all kinds of rumours flying around about Eddie Howe, about possibly if he's going to stay there or not. And there was a weird press conference question where Howe got asked about whether or not he believed his players were committed as much as they have been, and there was hesitation there, and it was a really weird moment. So whether that was a bit of a drop of the public mask, everything's all right, keep it in the dressing room kind of thing. That looked like a bit of a slip. So I would expect Arsenal to win that. Brentford, I think, might be a problem for Man U. Brentford are incredibly organised, and Man United have had some good results, but recently they've been struggling against teams that are very disciplined at the
Well,
back. And I think Brentford and their setup, they might get something there. They might get a
mm.
nice little scrappy draw or something like that.
Right, if we move on to segment three, the obscure fact section, Mark, I'm going to hand over to you for this week's obscure fact.
Right. Well, this weekend it is FA Cup semi-final weekend. And I thought about looking at, the usual kind of things where, Southampton are in the semi-finals. So when was the last time a team from outside the top flight won the FA Cup? But that feels like something for the final. This time I've gone for a very specific semi-final one, and it's the semi-final with Everton and Tottenham in 1995.
Hmm.
The match saw Daniel Amokachi substitute himself onto the pitch without his manager's permission and score two goals that led to Everton winning 4-1 over
Hmm.
Spurs. Basically, Paul Rideout got injured. He'd gone down, he got up, he went down again. He's struggling. And Amokachi goes over to the assistant manager of Everton and says, "The gaffer wants to put me on."
Mm.
The manager hadn't said anything, basically. So the assistant manager goes through the routine, official by the touchline, does the substitution, and McCatchy goes onto the pitch, and manager Joe Royle is basically going, "What are you doing?" Now, as it turned out, it all went right because Amakachi gets two goals. Everton win 4-1. They even go on to win the FA Cup that year. And Amakachi himself comes off the pitch and goes, "That was probably the moment that would have made or broke his career, basically, because if he went on and did nothing, It was probably going to be his last game. Apparently, the manager did say to him afterwards, "Well played, but don't ever do that again." But that's probably one of the more obscure things that have happened in an FA Cup semi-final.
On the
Joe
subject
Lyall
of
referred to it as the best substitution I never made.
things that I may or may not sort of know are true, I had no idea about that. I know that 95 was the last time Everton won a trophy. That is a story I didn't know of. So very good. Very, very good. Well, that's all we have time for this week. So until next time, do keep the faith and please like and subscribe to our channels on various social media and do get involved there if you're so inclined. We are back sometime next week with more TMTG goodness. Till the next time, until all are one.